It's Tuesday, October 28th. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. Today on the show, we're talking about leadership, an upcoming event. I got some folks here talking about inspiration for women, gender diverse folks from different backgrounds and communities to feel more confident in their values, perspectives, and their voices in the workforce. Packed studio. We'll make a call partway through the show. And as you are listening, if you've got thoughts for us in this discussion, if you want to talk about leadership or if there's something that resonates with the discussion that you're hearing, the signal at cbc.ca. You can text us, 709-327-8206. I can't believe I had to look at the number to remember the last two digits on that one. Stephanie Howlett saved me here, CEO of Diversity NL. You got in touch with me. And we were talking about Fierce and the summit. Start to fill me in, and then we'll meet everyone else here in the studio.
Absolutely. Myself and Krista Hynes.
Hi, Krista Hynes.
Hi.
I wave at you, and we're doing radio.
I know.
I'm a
I wave
genius.
back,
Yeah.
so.
Everyone can see it.
Yeah.
So myself and Krista had a look at, in the space within Newfoundland, Labrador, and St. John's, is there space for women and people who identify as gender diverse? And what does that look like specifically in a leadership space? So Krista and I have been planning this Fierce Leadership Summit, proudly presented by Synovus. And just looking at what is it that we can do to create that safer space for gender diversity, for folks of different backgrounds, across industries, and just be able to have this great connection of a day, a space where we can be ourselves authentically.
Krista Hynes, what are your thoughts on the start of it and where it's being pushed?
Yeah, so the conversation really sprung out of, Stephanie and I have attended multiple summits and conferences, both in the province and outside of the province. And both of us really felt that a dedicated, safe space was not really shaping up in what we had seen. There was lots of, obviously mixtures of gender diverse folks and cisgendered folks, but we wanted to make sure that the most powerful and authentic conversations could be given space, because we feel that this community needs that voice to be risen now more than ever with everything that's going on. And from the ideas that come when people are connecting together in a psychologically safe space, we can foster better connections, have stronger conversations, and then take that and then cycle it back into the community that exists as it is with mixed genders and mixed identities.
Okay, thanks for the... when is it, by the way?
November the 6th.
November the 6th.
At a mall.
At a mall? Mm-hmm. Which mall? Which of the two?
Ricketts Road.
Okay, different.
Yeah.
Wait, all right,
Yeah.
never mind.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Yes,
That's
I know.
just
Every
my
time I
mind.
say a mall, everybody's like,
Well, we have two
yeah,
malls.
one
No,
of
we
the
have
village.
more
No,
than...
no,
yeah.
not a mall. A mall.
A mall.
Yeah.
Not a mall. What is it?
Put the right
Oprah,
emphasis.
Uma.
Yes.
Anyways, old Letterman joke from hosting an award show. Laura Umba is here. How you doing?
Pretty dandy.
I see you all the time these days.
Always. We're friends.
Yeah, we are. Tell us about your involvement in this.
So Stephanie reached out to me and she's like, hey, Laurabel, this cool thing I'm planning with Krista. Would you be interested? And I was like, I didn't really even have to think. I was like, yes. Anytime these two get together, it's going to be something amazing. It's going to be something inspiring. It's going to be something that gives people a space to show up authentically, to learn, to grow, to give and take. And so I said, absolutely. Tell me where I got to be, when I got to be there, and how long you'll let me stay. So
Excellent.
here we are.
Here we are. AnneMarie Boudreau is here, CEO of the St. John, or the Board of Trade, I should say, St. John's, and also the whole province, right? Because there was that great rebrand. What's your?
right.
See, I'm on it.
I know. Thank you for paying attention.
Right. Well, I try. Even though it still came out of my mouth, I regrouped and landed it.
I forgive you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, what's your role for this?
So I had a little bit of the same experience Laurabel did. Stephanie called me up and asked me if I'd jump in and help out on this. And I said yes, really without asking too many questions. But the more I've learned, certainly, and the more that Stephanie's been sharing with me about the day that they've pulled together. So I've been asked to moderate a panel of, some very impressive females that Stephanie's pulled together, Stephanie and Krista. And so I'm there to moderate a discussion around that. And I think as women, we all need to, be a part of and understand the role that we have to play in supporting conversations like this and creating space, as Krista alluded to have conversations like this. And frankly, there's so much research that supports the notion that, women need to be given access to leadership roles and management roles and board positions. So I'm happy for the Board of Trade, and I'm happy for me to have been invited to be a part of it.
Cool. What's the difference between a safe space and like the regular business out in the community space?
You want me to start?
That's a great question, by the way. So to me, myself, a safe space is one where I can really show up and I don't have to hide parts of myself or parts of my identity.
Yeah.
That I can really, be myself no matter what that is. So being a part of the queer community, I don't have to hide who I am as a person. I can speak about me, my family, my connections, and just can really, lean into that piece. I don't have to hide things about my intersectionalities and what that looks like. And unfortunately, in some workplaces, that's not the case. That a lot of us hide pieces of who we are that are really important to us. We might have the code shift, whether language, we might have to really look at other things, right? Like just to make people feel comfortable that are in the room, not really be ourselves.
When we say code shift,
Yeah.
what do we mean?
So we really mean that we're hiding, we're making people feel comfortable in that space, but we may not be comfortable, right? We might shift the languages we would use, we might shift even the way that we might look, all those sorts of things about us.
Another word along that line would be masking.
Yeah.
A lot of people will do it, and sometimes it's subconscious. They're not even necessarily aware of it. But there's been so much systematic barriers and systematic realities that have been put in traditional workspaces and traditional leadership roles that when women and gender diverse folks show up in those spaces, there's almost an automatic shift that happens. And even if that workplace or that environment is attempting to be safe. These are more than just check boxes. These are realities that really have to be built out and spoke about very loudly about the culture that you want to create. So sometimes it's as simple as seeing someone in a role that maybe you would aspire to, but they don't look or talk or act like you, and immediately, it breaks down a little bit of, could I be in that space? Could I have that same voice?
Yeah. Can I be me into this position, or do I, and like this is a cliche, but like just think the water cooler. Like, do I need to now insert myself into, for example, like right now everyone's talking, like a lot of folks are talking about the Blue Jays right now.
Yes.
But if you're someone in a workplace who's like, I don't care about the Blue Jays, but now the water cooler talk is the Blue Jays. But this has nothing to do with my ability as a leader in a workplace, and for me just to go and be like, that Bo, whatever his name is, did great with the stick last night.
Joe Carter.
Yeah, right.
Go Sports.
Joe Carter. Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like, but like, so this is what I'm kind of thinking about, and I know that's kind of like a simplistic way of putting it, but just that's one example that kind of comes to mind.
And golf. That's the big one I use because in my background in the financial industry, there's a lot of conversations and a lot of what are called handshake relationships that happen on the golf course. I don't play golf. I play putt-putt, but nothing happens that's serious business on the putt-putt course.
No.
So, it's that question of, like, for a while there, I was like, do I have to learn golf in order to be successul and make the impact I want to make?
Yeah.
I didn't learn golf.
Good. I mean, I'm not a.
I met Stephanie instead.
I'm not a golf. Totally. Like, if you have these other spaces that everyone's been occupying, right? And then you look at it, it's like, oh, is this where the deal? Like, is this the thing? Thanks for doing. Yeah, we'll be in touch. My people, your people, and like this is locked in. And meanwhile, you're like, but I'm not even out there. I'm on the putt course, doing my own thing. Great point. Anyone else with thoughts on this?
No, I agree with both Stephanie and Krista. Stephanie and I have had many conversations about like code switching and editing and like trying to trim parts of yourself to be in spaces and what kind of liberation it feels like to show up as your full self, whether that is brightly colored, whether that is social, whether you're a little bit more of an introvert, but still feel like I can be in the space as I am and I have something to offer the space as well as something to learn in the space. Yeah.
Is there any power in being able to effectively code switch, though? Because is there a way to do it positively, or do you think it's all bad?
I don't know if it's there's power in the ability to code switch. Yes, it does open a ton of doors if you can code switch into the predominant style of wherever you're going to be. I don't know if I would call it a positive. There's a difference between being versatile and ability to modify yourself in spaces where you might not be the dominant culture of those things. So like if you're traveling to a new country, Yes, absolutely. It's wonderful if you can acclimatize to the space that you're in, but that's different than code switching.
Yeah.
And so code switching is inherently shedding yourself to be in a space in order to survive, to exist, to be considered valuable, versus I have traveled to a world where I am not the dominant culture, but I still want to fit in, but I can still be me in that kind of space.
So how often for yourself, and also like always, if I ask something too personal,
Oh, no.
feel free to drive.
We're friends
completely
now.
away
It's all
from
good.
it. Like how often have over the years, like when does this come into your mind around the code switch? Like, do you ever, are you ever like, gosh, like I was code switching there? Like, have you kind of worked through that yourself?
Yeah, so it's not even gosh that I was code switching. That I'm fully aware of when
Okay.
I do it.
All right.
It is not, and it's not
Like,
an
I'm
accident.
driving.
It's your
I'm the
superpower.
captain
Yeah.
of the ship, Adam.
Yeah, like it is not, and I think for a lot of people who do have to code switch, I don't think it's an accident that we code switch. We're very aware of when we have to do it because we've had to do it for survival,
Yeah.
for acceptance, for promotions, whatever the reason is that we've had to do it. What I think sometimes is, oh, I don't have to do it today. Yay! Super excited when you don't have to do it. But when you do have to do it, it's like, okay, I've done this effectively. When can I stop?
Right.
When do I not have to do this? And how often have I done that? That's a longer question. That is, I think that's a therapy session.
That's a therapy session or
Yeah,
its
that's
own
a separate
podcast.
podcast.
AnneMarie, what about yourself?
No, I just, listening to my colleagues here, I think this is exactly the reason why they developed this day. I think having this conversation, having the space to have the conversation, but also having the conversation so that other people can observe it.
Yep.
Because I think not only is it something that impacts people who do find themselves in situations where they're forced to do it, but it's up to all of us to create spaces where we don't have that expectation. And only if it's top of mind can we take an active role in creating places where we don't have that expectation of our colleagues or our peers around us.
How is leadership, like, how have your thoughts around that word and what leadership is? How has that changed over time? And what is healthy leadership perhaps compared to other types? Because I don't know, I grew up playing rugby. I joined the Naval Reserves. I was an officer, right? At like 19 years old.
know.
And
Very
supposed to be providing some form of leadership, which like now when I look back, I'm like, oh, I don't know if, like it was good for my own personal development in life, but I don't know, like I wasn't much of a leader back then. So like I'm curious as to your thoughts around like what actual leadership should be, what healthy leadership is, and how much of it we have and how much more of it we need.
Oh, I like that. So
That's such a great question.
I know, it's fantastic. I think for me, leadership has changed over the years. When I think of like when someone would say the word leader, what I would picture before used to be like the staunch older man in the suit sitting at the boardroom, hands like this.
Maybe a
and-
mustache or
Yeah.
a beard. Yeah.
And
sure.
either way, very terrifying individual that I did not want to have to spend any amount of time with.
Yeah.
He gave the orders and you were supposed to obey, and that was what a leader was. And then as I've gotten older, I think of leaders as who would I call if I needed help?
Yeah.
Who am I leaning on? Who do I need to bounce ideas off of? Who has insight and experience or point of view that I would not otherwise have considered? And to me, those are the leaders. And they're not always the people at the head of the boardroom table giving orders and demands. They're sometimes found in the mommy groups where you're like, hey, my kid's doing this weird thing. And then the lessons from there are things that are applicable in the workspace, in the business space, versus the idea that you have to be PhD, this and that. And though you can be, and you can be a leader like that, but you can also be a lived experience individual who is comfortable with their own experiences, the things they've seen, the things they've done, and is happy to share that knowledge at no cost to the people who could benefit from it.
Yeah, I mean, I've over the years seen many a leader in title only.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
fine, you got the title, but you're not leading anyone anywhere.
That's right.
Right? You could lead people out of a wet paper bag. Sorry.
But I
Don't
think
fit into my
that's
past.
I think that's exactly it. That was a trigger moment.
Oh,
there.
well, there we go. Back in the Navy. Here we go.
But I think that's it. And I think even the traditional sort of leadership roles that you brought up, Adam, in those very staunch situations, I think a big shift in me, and I'll take a bit of a different perspective from Laurabel, is that it's a realization for me as I've moved through various leadership roles myself and witnessed various leadership, and then meeting Stephanie and opening myself up to honestly what diversity and equity should look like in a truly equitable space, is that, you know, it's not necessarily a male versus female conversation. It's that traditional leadership frameworks are kind of broken, and they really weren't built with women and gender diverse folks in mind, because they weren't who were taking up those spaces back in the day. So what we really want this event to do is challenge any of those traditional notions of what people think leaders are, and maybe taking more, like, there's really a community and a grass work breath that we want to come through this event to say, like, leaders look like you and they look like everybody here. So if someone in the mommy group has an amazing idea, well, she shouldn't be nervous to say, like, hey, my kid does that weird thing too, and here's how we got through it. Leaders become groups of people who join together and rise up together, bring everybody with them rather than standing on the top of the mountain and kind of shouting.
Yeah, I'm a fan of show, not tell.
Yeah.
From leadership. I want to see. I mean, you can use your words, but like I want to see the work you're doing, and I want you to be compassionate. And there's a lot of things I want around a leader that is caring, understanding, but also talented, and also helping the people around them kind of lift up
Doing
together,
the things.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, Stephanie, what are your thoughts? Anything on this coming up?
Lots of thoughts.
Yeah, it's why you're here. Yeah.
So leadership for me has shifted. So in healthcare, I was in a leadership role, and I thought I had to be a certain way to fit in and to blend into. Being in an administrative role was being a social worker. There weren't many in those roles. Most were in a nursing area and in a many male-oriented areas, and for me being queer and being female and being a social worker and all those things in my background, it's just like, well, I need to act a certain way, be a certain way, but it didn't really fit with my value set, with who I was as a person. So I found that really tremendously hard and difficult. So hence where I'm to today. You know, starting off your own business and just providing your own way of leadership that looks completely different, because I'm all about empathy, and empathy doesn't exist a lot in leadership roles. And I think really need to look at the empathy piece and bringing that back, and just, you know, can you lift, can you rise others to some of the conversations we just had? And that's always my space. Like, can we provide that space, you know, to help others, to you know, raise each other, do that, not just mentorship, sponsorship pieces, which a lot of organizations, some do amazing jobs at, but who are you sponsoring and who are you mentoring? Who are those people, right? Do they look exactly like you, right? So just kind of looking at where we can go as Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. We have some amazing immigrant populations of refugees coming in, and, you know, how are we providing that support as leaders within this space as well? I mean, that's a big notion too.
Was there a moment for you when you looked and you're like, you know what, this is not like when I'm thinking of leadership, this I'm changing? Or did it slowly change over time? Like, how did that process work for you with your realization? And was it like unlearning, or what was the process?
Oh, it was definitely feeling not happy in a role and going, this is not where I want to be or where I thought I wanted to be, because sometimes when you go through educational pieces, it's just like, you know, I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna get that, and then I see myself in this role, and then you hit the role, and it's just like, no, this is not where I can create the impact. So for me, starting Diversity NL was creating that impact, and then, you know, meeting people like Laurabel and AnneMarie and Krista and all the great people that are going to be there on that day. It was just like, this is my space. Like, this is the space that we're building together. We're truly all building the space together. It's not my space. It's all of our spaces and what this looks like. And I think that's the difference of women and gender diverse, is creating this space together, creating a network that supports one another, and it's not just one day. Like, the intention of Behind Fierce is doing it throughout the year, really connecting in with people.
Yeah, and well, I mean, you do it through the year, and that, like, the continued connection is so meaningful that way, as opposed to just being like, yeah, we did a thing and then it's gone, and then maybe we'll do it again next year. It's like, great, thanks, but if you're like continuing connection with folks like that, I think that's how people can. Like, you can see change that way better, because like, I'm all about consistency. Like, even when it comes down to like my running, it's like I need to run a certain amount of week every week, and if 1 week dips down and another week's up, but over time, it's the same with the job I do here. Like, on the Signal, it's like I want a certain level of what I think is a good show. Now, some shows dip below, some shows are above, but if you've got the consistency over time, that's how you kind of get better. At least that's the theory I've been kind of kind of working on.
Yep.
We've got Sue on the line. Sorry, Sue, how you doing?
I'm great. How about yourself, Adam?
Good. Thanks for taking our call. You're going to be speaking at the summit. What are you talking about? I mean leadership, but
Well, I think a lot of it will be, for me, it will also be dependent on what are some of the points of interest for the folks attending. My biggest reason for accepting the invitation, and I'm so excited to take part in the summit, it was actually because, honestly, it was an invitation from Stephanie, who, in the fairly short amount of time that we've known each other, she's just following her work, being in her presence, seeing some of the work stuff that she's put off, seeing like the minds change and shift in the same space where she occupies, and she points out so many, things that in frameworks of thinking that you might not have tapped into or accessed previously, and she is so incredibly effective in making you see what you're good at, what are some rooms for growth and change, and connecting people. So I really want to be in this space. And I've very frequently, just in my professional and sometimes personal life as a volunteer and a community leader as well, I've been in a lot of rooms where I'm always the odd one out. I'm a racialized woman who jumped into a lot of projects when I was younger because I was always told that, you have to achieve a certain level of what we'll call success or greatness before a certain age, before your expiration, so to speak, right, in terms of your career aspirations. And the roadmap for me was always given and taught to me in a very specific way, influenced by my background and my culture. And I'm really only just realizing that this is not a one-size-fits-all journey. We're all, in our leadership journey, like where we are and what we're doing, the level of impact that we think we do or don't have. We're all trying to do this in our own time, and to have this shared space where we could be connected or have the opportunity to connect with so many other folks on the leadership journey, seeing what it could look like and where it could come from. And not just in appearance alone, but in backgrounds, in experiences, whether you're a volunteer or it's a professional experience, or even it's a part of your cultural background and upbringing. It's just so exciting. And it's just a big, juicy opportunity I want to take a bite into. So.
Is some of this as well, I'm just kind of listening to what you're describing there, it also feels like kind of breaking the blocks around sometimes perhaps even imposter syndrome, right? And moving beyond like what you think people are setting up for how folks need to be and where you need to fit. It's like, no, for the conversation here today, it's like, no, I fit and I'm okay. And it's not, and I can kind of push that imposter syndrome thing to the side.
Yeah, it's funny you brought up because as I started seeing the other panelists and folks who were invited, and AnneMarie, Krista, Stephanie, and Laurabel, like I follow them on LinkedIn. I've seen their accomplishments, and one of the first things I said to Stephanie was like, "Am I in the right space?" So the imposter syndrome is so accurate, but at the same time, I'm also trying to learn and lean into that, because that discomfort will lead me to the next place where, I'll be able to. I can set another goal for myself that, if I feel I'm insufficient right now, I could step into the next step. Or maybe that's not what's meant for me right now. So the discomfort of the imposter syndrome is actually an excellent learning opportunity and place for growth. So I'm trying to tell myself and anyone that I see who experience that same type of feeling that, those little butterflies that you have, those are good things. Lean into it. And the fact that you feel that you might not be good enough might just be exactly why you'll make a good leader, because a true leader will reflect and understand that, there's room for growth and you haven't reached the peak yet. There's more hills and mountains to climb.
So many folks don't get close to where you are with this understanding right now. How does it, just to know that you're making this progress through and you're at this point, how does that feel for you? Because it's so like the amount of self-awareness and understanding, and then also like the look ahead. I mean, it sounds amazing.
I think it's a lot to do with the fact that I'm seeing spaces similar to this popping up. So as a personal example for me, I sit on the board of the provincial Newfoundland Labrador Construction Association, where for the last number of years there's been a Women in Construction Forum. And I'm lucky enough to be the person who gets to lead a quarterly coffee circle where the purpose is to create a safe space for women, gender diverse folks to come in and have conversations that sometimes might be a little bit tough in a traditional, however you define that traditional setting. And so having experience making a small space like that, I can see the opportunities to open up to folks who otherwise might feel a little bit shy, or maybe that they don't have the room to speak. So I'm really excited about the summit because one of the things that I have learned is that when you come into this space with women, gender diverse folks, and people who have a lot of background, you will find one person in there who will, if you're having a great day or even a bad day or a day where you're doubting your abilities and your experiences, you will find at least one person who knows exactly what you need to hear, how you need to hear it, or if you need someone to listen to you, they know how to listen.
Sue Howe-Shu, thank you so much for coming on the program for this chat. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Have a great day.
Thanks, Sue.
You too.
All right. So any thoughts on what Sue was saying there?
We're done.
I mean, nailed it, right?
Yeah.
Like if this is, if you want evidence of the progress that gets made, like there you go.
Yeah, I met Sue at one of those coffee circles, and when Stephanie and I were chatting about who should be on the panel, I think we both kind of came up with her immediately. We've like assembled a dream team of people for this event, and we pinch ourselves quite frequently at the ability that people just jumped on board. I think that speaks to the necessity of the space, just as Sue was saying. Like, there's small groups that are popping up. The elements are there. The conversations are happening. So what we're really hoping that Fierce does is exactly how Sue explained it, is lighting that fire and really encouraging those folks who may be just teetering on the edge to say, I don't know if I belong in that space. Well, the answer is yes, you do. And as soon as you step into the space, you're going to meet 5 other people who are going through the exact same thing or thinking about the exact same thing as you are on some line. And we're hoping that will bring those groups together and help them join forces.
That's Krista Lee Hynes, their president of Ignite Financial. You are listening to The Signal. I'm Adam Walsh. We're talking about the upcoming Fierce Summit. We have Stephanie Howlett here as well, CEO of Diversity NL. Laurabel Umba is here, a consultant who will be speaking at the summit. And AnneMarie Boudreau, CEO of the Board of Trade and moderator of one of the panels at the summit. Peer-to-peer, I talk about it a lot on the show, comes up, the importance of peer-to-peer support. Like, how important has that been for you folks? Because this is kind of what it's all about. A lot of what we're talking about, right? Like feeling safe in a space. Like even if you feel that you're isolated or alone in something, or some of that imposter syndrome, having someone be like, "No, that's normal. You're feeling like what you're feeling is fine." Like that is massively important. But I'm just curious about your thoughts on it.
I think it's exactly what we're hoping to get from the day and the conversation. I expect a lot of what Sue just said, in addition to her maybe needing to coach me. But I also think that's exactly what we'll be talking about on this panel. And I was listening to her describe, the imposter syndrome. We all have imposter syndrome, and it goes, and it reappears, and then it may go again, and then something brings it back, some scenario that you're in. Does imposter syndrome get talked about on the golf course? I don't know.
Probably not.
It's really interesting. So I think it's exactly when you two envisioned this type of event. There's a lot of power and, when someone can be empathetic and when someone can relate to the situation, and those people are women and gender diverse people, and when they can share stories and share similar situations, that's when people feel more confident, not only to admit that, yes, that's how I feel, but to work on it and change it, or to openly even discuss it, which I think is what the day will bring.
And it's two-sided too, right? Because when you ask that question, Adam, my thought kind of goes to, well, early in my career, there probably wasn't a lot of peer-to-peer support.
Yeah.
And I think the lack of it, as much as the existence of it, is part of the conversation. And I think that bringing this group of women and gender diverse folks together and saying, like, put down the mantles, put down the masks. Let's just be us and talk about what needs to happen. I think gives everybody the freedom to say, I don't have to act a certain way, because sometimes women and gender diverse folks in leadership roles have emulated like what we would, I guess, typically or traditionally call more masculine qualities. Like when we think of a leader, those stereotypical checkboxes.
Yeah, I'm like thinking Wolf of Wall Street right now.
Exactly,
right? You know,
exactly. And like, again, being my space in the financial world, like I see that a lot. Like there's a lot of power suits.
I mean, I know it's a real thing, but it's a real thing, is it?
It's a real thing.
Like,
it's
gosh.
a real thing. And it can be quite toxic and quite hard to take. And when you want empathy and you thrive in situations that are heart-led, that can feel like a very, very lonely space. So for me, it's always been about reaching out and trying to find peer groups, not necessarily within my industry, but finding a community where I could be my authentic self and lead, and then bring that back to the industry where I was wanting to make my impact, so that I could get strength from my peers and from my sisters, even if they weren't walking kind of the exact same path as me. And that's kind of the idea, is like, let's just put it down. We're not competing here. We're not put against each other. We're put in this space to rise each other up.
So is that beast of imposter syndrome being tackled more these days? Like obviously with this, right? But I just mean in the corners you've been in. Like how much do you still see it? And like the reason for it being some of the stuff that's always been around, that's been really negative and unhealthy.
I think it is being tackled. I wish I could say it's like, oh, eradicated. Never
Done. Yeah,
don't
we're
have to
done.
deal
Yeah,
with it
yeah.
anymore. But I think it even shows up in like really sneaky ways. So like you can be in a space where someone is like complimenting your work and you're like, nah, not me, never. And Steph's looking at me because that's like a conversation we have often. And I was like, nope, I'm not. You're imagining a different person, because it's definitely not me you're talking about. And I think for a lot of women and gender diverse people, like even accepting praise or congratulations for things that we have worked really hard to achieve, we still struggle to see the value in the things that we've achieved and like how momentous they are, how incredible they are, and that other people, if someone else did it, we would definitely be standing there and be like, I don't know how you did this, but you got it together and I'm so proud of you. But when it's you, you're like, it's just a day. I did the thing. It's fine. It's not really something to focus on. And I think that's like one of the aspects of imposter syndrome we don't talk about. We talk about I can't do it, but then after you've done it, you're still like, it wasn't anything.
Reflecting,
Yeah, like everyone else could have done that.
Stephanie, thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I think everyone feels imposter syndrome. Is just like, do we talk about it? What does it feel like? Before I came here, like massively anxious. Like, Krista, let's have a conversation, right? Like, we're doing this? We're doing this.
Yeah.
Right? It's one of those, it's like, okay, we're doing this. All right. So it's just that nervousness of potentially going places where people haven't. I know we're not going to outer space, but like we're potentially, talking to things that maybe we haven't talked about that are uncomfortable. And I guess that's the whole point of this space, is that it's going to be hopefully transformative. Hopefully we'll connect across generations, across diversities and backgrounds. And, that people are going to show up and be open to this really different sort of a day.
So then how do we you get folks together for this type of a meeting, a group, a summit, and then you look back out into the corners of the city, communities, province that people go to. What are then the changes that still need to happen? I'm thinking like perhaps around mentorship, or just perhaps around sometimes it could be stereotypes, discrimination. Like, there's any number of things out there. Like, what do you want to see then, or what would you like to continue to see pushing for with folks who have a bit more confidence, a bit more like healthy leadership, bringing back into their workplaces or communities?
Well, I think we talked a lot about what we want people to leave this day with, and absolutely confidence. And we want them to understand that their voice matters and that they deserve to take up space. And leaders have a role to play. So whether they are a leader or whether they are in a space where they are being led, making sure that the folks that are leading understand it's not just managing. It's not management. It's about showing up every day and actually being in the work and showing the example. It's about creating safe spaces, but also being a part of that space and not necessarily waiting for somebody else to take the torch or take the baton and do it for you, but to the suggestion box, so to speak. It's maybe not just about writing something down on a piece of paper and shoving it in an unlabeled box, but it is about, writing that memo or writing that email and not having the fear to say, oh my gosh, I might be reprimanded, but also the leadership around making sure people understand, like, hey, if you see something, say something. If you see somebody being misrepresented, then tell us about it. If you feel misrepresented, then tell us about it.
Not to make this about like dollars and cents, but like, and AnneMarie, help me with this. If you have folks who don't feel like they're part of things, who are not seen or heard, who have like so much potential, but the way things have been set up forever, it's just not working right for them. And that's bad for business, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, going back to the question and taking things from the day and what do you want to happen, I think it is really important that this just isn't a conversation that happens at a mall that day and then we all really enjoy it and have learned things. But if we don't go back into our spaces and communities and workplaces and talk about it or feel comfortable, I think as Krista just said, like if you see something, say it. I think it is really important to not be afraid to bring up a conversation or to approach a subject that might be happening just because no one's broached it before. And I think there's an empowerment that I would hope comes from this day, that people feel informed enough and supported enough by, the community that will have been there that day and the conversation that will happen. And I do think it is really important that people understand this is not just a nice to have. Companies that have women in leadership roles outperform companies that don't. So creating this space, and there's research.
Does the United States know that? Oh, I'm sorry. I
can't speak to that, Adam. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'll have to get back to you on that.
Curious. I've been paying attention to stuff south of the border.
I have a theory. But I do think that that's really important. And there's so much research out there that it's very black or white. When you bring women and gender diverse people around the table, you make better decisions. You have better financial performance. Your company, your organization is set up to perform better, to be better sustainability, like all of the reasons, all of succession planning. There's so many reasons that just support that this is not just because, we're sitting around here and we think this should happen because it's the right thing to do. It is the right thing to do, but there's also just sound, concrete advice for why women need to be supported and given opportunities to be in these types of roles.
Wrong button. So we started, Krista, you said, with everything going on, right? Alluding to kind of the joke I just kind of made, I think. So with everything going on, so we've got like the Fierce Summit and then this conversation we're having. But we look at the United States, we look at some of the global temperature right now. Where are all your thoughts on like where we are? And like, because we can be trying stuff here in Newfoundland and Labrador, but like there's also everything else going on in the world, and that does impact us, right? We've, like AnneMarie, you've been here for tariff conversations, although I did say I would not talk to you about tariffs today. Like, we've been talking about this, and this stuff, it matters with what is happening in other countries, especially when it's like, you're sleeping in bed with the whatever the Trudeau, the senior Trudeau reference of the elephant and whatever thing that people kind of understand what I'm saying. What do you think about that?
The state of the world?
Yeah, just that small question.
much time you got,
just
Adam?
that small, tiny question. But in a time of like, when
Adam,
you
know
look
your audience.
in a time of like, you've seen progress, right? And these conversations going on, and we talked about progress being made, but then you see a country south of us like zag away, and all of a sudden DEI is a bad acronym. How do we keep on keeping on here with all that happening?
Acknowledge that we're seeing these things happening, and it's not just the country south of us.
And it's happening in this country and in this province.
Our federal legislature is having DEI conversations, and we have a leader that says that he is anti-DEI. And I think it's understanding first what DEI means, because people are still struggling to understand what those three acronyms mean. And I was like, one of the things Stephanie and I talk about anytime we have to do DEI conversations in organizations is like, DEI is you. It's me. It is as long as you are in any room where you might be slightly off from the person beside you, it is now officially a diverse room. Whether it is one person went to college and another person went to university. Look at that. You have educational diversity. If it is one person came from a two-family home and one person's a single parent, look at that. You have familial diversity. So understanding that diversity is not just racialized people or non-gender diverse people or women or religious diversity. It is literally who got paid more yesterday than I get paid today.
Yeah.
And when we understand that these progresses that we didn't really account for, except you were on the receiving end of them, do definitely impact you. So if they roll back any of these diversity or progressive measures, at the end of the day, you're the one who's going to suffer. Your bottom line is going to suffer, like AnneMarie talked about. When we see women and gender diverse people in workplaces, everyone does better. When we don't see them, everyone does worse. So how do I feel about the state of the world? I'm nervous.
Yeah.
Like these progressions are still so new that they could go away. And we're watching not just south of the border, but other parts of the world try to pull these relatively new progressions away from people who deserve them. If we're not willing to fight for them, things are going to be dicey for everyone. And that's not a space I want to live in anymore.
No. Thanks for that. Anyone else on that?
With the diversity inclusion piece, I guess that is a big loaded question, especially being in that space. I think we've gone back to the 1920s in different areas of the world, which is quite concerning. And I hope that that doesn't happen for us in Canada, but we're quite aware that it may in different areas. So just, like Laurabel said, like it's, if it happens to one woman or gender diverse person, it happens to all of us. I mean, that's the whole piece of it that, if you can't get an abortion, then that is a massive, thing. So we need to have an understanding of why is that happening. And sometimes, politics, don't deserve a space into our personal lives. Right. So it's looking at, I guess, how the two intertwine. And, some companies are really great and continuing to invest into diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and anti-racism, that big, long acronym, or some people call it FAIR, because not everyone understands what all these words mean. Right. So, looking at, it's all of us. Like, it truly is all of us.
Fair treatment.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the difference between equality and equity?
Can I take that one?
Yeah, sure.
That's one of my favorite ones because that was part of International Women's Day. I don't know if it was last year or the year before.
The year before.
And the visualization really resonated with me because it was some people trying to look over a fence. So if you think about equality, it's everybody has a box to stand on, right? But if you think about equity, then everybody has the right sized box to stand on so they can see over the fence in the same level.
If you and I, I'll just say there's a height difference. You're much taller than me.
Opposite day, yep.
If we were standing at a fence with a box, we would just need different sized boxes.
100%. I would need a much smaller one than you because I'm so tall. And I think that is it. Like when people interchange those words, it's like, no. Equality means we're all in the room. Equity means we're all in the room, but we're given the tools to allow us to stand in the room and take up the same amount of space. Our voices have the same level and the same resonance within the space. And I think we have to acknowledge the progress that we've made, but we also have to acknowledge that we are still here in 2025 having these conversations, right? And I did a women's empowerment event, not a leadership event, but I've done a few empowerment events. And one of the things that I say, and I just had to take my notes out there, is, some people will say, well, why isn't there an International Men's Day? Or why do we need to make specific spaces where we call things out? I'm like, boys, there aren't legislation about men's bodies.
Yeah.
And we're still here having these conversations about what rights do we have. We're not that far removed from women not being able to open a bank account or a credit line without a spouse or a parent. So, yes, we've made progress, and I never want to negate the shoulders that we stand on today because of the amazing battles that were fought for women's rights. But we still do need to recognize that while we may be making progress on equality, the equity piece is still a big question mark. And that's what we want to drive home is we want to, I don't know if it's far enough to say that we want to encourage a whole bunch of female soldiers to get up there and really start the fight up again. But there's been a bit of comfort in regards to where the conversation needs to go. And as much as this day is a celebration of the progress and the ability for us to gather safely and be allowed to use our voice, there is a call to action to it as well, to say that, we have to take these conversations out and we have to get really, really loud because we cannot go backwards.
Mm. When you're either mentoring someone or for what, through folks getting together, when you're working with people, and then you see, so someone comes into your orbit or sphere lacking perhaps confidence and maybe a bit of that imposter syndrome, but then you see like something and a little bit more, and you start to see like something building with this person. What's that like?
Oh, I think, okay, so for those who have green thumbs, it's probably like a gardener watching their garden grow and seeing like this thing that was planted that you knew had the ability to be the most beautiful flower or the coolest cucumber in your garden, whatever you want it to be, actually getting to see that like fully grown thing. You're like, yes, like it's there, and it's not there because you did all this stuff, but because at some point it started pulling the nutrients it needed to grow. It faced the sun at the right time. It did the things it had to do too. And you added your little touch of magic to help it get there. But it did the work that it needed to do on itself to get there. And I think it's not even so much about you getting to say, yay, it's there. It's like, I'm so glad you got to see the magic in you that I've known existed all along.
Yeah, that's the bit I was curious about, right?
Yeah.
Like that, what you see compared to and where someone is. Like sometimes, like especially now in my advanced age of 45, in the newsroom, we've got, like, for example, there's someone in the newsroom, I'm older than their parents. And I was like, oh, this is new for me. I was used to being the youngest. But so I see some of these younger journalists come in, and I can see where they're going. Right. They don't know yet because they're just, still like getting the water and the nutrients and growing and everything else. But it is such a nice vantage point to see. And then as they get more confident, you're like, there you are. Like I knew you were there, but there you are. And it is amazing. That's just on my end. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. It's not just silently watching too. There's a piece of this that we know has to come afterwards about having conversations with allies, male and female allies. Is that what are you saying about women and gender diverse folks when they're not in the room?
Yeah.
And I think that piece is, are you watching silently as a new person comes in and blossoms or grows or maybe struggles, or are you championing them? And it doesn't necessarily have to mean, come here, I'll take you under my wing and help you, but it's being an example. I remember like early in my career, I had lots of people say like, hey, leave your door open a crack, because it means that, if you're in here working, somebody might walk by the hallway and come in and have a chat. And lots of people did. And people who are much more senior than me came in and, they didn't need to. They weren't in roles where they were compensated just for me to succeed, but they took time and they said, hey, how you doing? What are you struggling with? Not just, hey, this is what I did and look at me, but ask questions, check in, let's go have a coffee. Let's just take a break. Talk to me about what I wanted to do, how I wanted to succeed, what impact I wanted to make. And that meant a lot. And sometimes it meant a lot more than, the dollars and cents or the technical pieces of the trade. Is just like, how do you exist in the world and what can I learn from you to grow? So I think that's a big part of it.
Check-ins matter, right? Like those things, that little bit of like, how you doing? What are you working on? Where's the things going? Send a little note, right?
Yeah.
It was just, hey, that was great. Or also like whatever, like any range of things. Those things, I really do believe they matter a lot.
Like, are we saying people's voices in the room? Like, are we saying their names when they're not in the room? Yeah. Are we providing them the opportunities, the resources that they can thrive? And sometimes we're not. It's just recognizing whose names are we saying? Are we keeping our doors open or their doors open? Like, are we having the conversations we need to have to make sure that people can show up who they are, be their best selves? I guess that's what Fierce is about, making sure that you can show up, be your best self. And then, hopefully afterwards we will, be nurturing conversations. Hopefully we'll be planting seeds and growing flowers and hosting a community of people that feel that, we can connect and that we can support one another. Because, I'll acknowledge that, as women, gender diverse, we haven't always historically supported each other, because sometimes we're pitted against each other within workplaces and workspaces. So now we're tearing each other down. So this is all about, how do we support each other no matter who you are, no matter the space that you're in. Right, creating that opportunity.
Oftentimes, I find with events like you're having, you guys will send notes and be like, "I'm an ally. I want to be involved. Why can I be involved?" And you're like, "Well, okay, hold on. Cool your ally jets.
Yeah.
Can someone speak to that? And what is the appropriate way to be an ally?"
Yep.
Yeah.
AnneMarie, you laughed a lot.
I laughed a lot because I'm waiting for Stephanie's
Okay,
response.
all right.
Yeah.
My politically correct response.
I mean, you can respond any which way.
No.
This was a big conversation, though,
was.
Adam.
I know it was.
Actually
This
a
is
big,
why.
It was a big one that even Stephanie and I had, because I was kind of like, well, maybe we have to consider. She's like, no.
Nope.
Not
And
happening.
But
here's why.
And I'll let you answer 2 seconds. Like a safe space is a safe space for a reason, isn't it?
is.
This is my
It is.
question.
It
No,
is.
go ahead.
No, absolutely. Because I mean, I've been in spaces, and one or two male-identified people come in the room, and everything shifts. Right, the environment becomes quite different. Sometimes in a not so good positive space. So this day is about positivity. I don't want to console someone because they're uncomfortable with the topic we're having. Right, like so, and like that happens sometimes. We have to provide the emotional support and not have the conversation because it's uncomfortable. So the thing is as women and gender diverse, there's a lot of things we go through, right? There's a lot of microaggressions, biases, and things that we feel. So, if we can have these conversations in this safer space without feeling that it might be judged or, my boss is in the room, so I really can't participate. I have to be a certain way. So, we want to remove some of those barriers, right? So if you're a male, you want to really support us, buy some tickets, sponsor us, send your coworkers, right? Send folks that should be in the room, right? Send your HR, send your admin staff, like send people that need to be in this room to have the conversations. I mean, that's how really you can best support us as a male ally.
Yeah, support the safe space.
Yeah.
Because that's, it being a safe space means like the guys are, you're not there for this. Like this is the point.
Be okay with that.
Be okay. Yeah.
Because there will be a time and space to bring the allies in and have the conversation and really, some folks know what it means to be an ally and some people don't really understand what that term actually means. So I think having the safe space conversation without allies present is going to bring the level of the conversation with the allies to an even better space.
What would your definition of an ally be?
Well, I think it's somebody who genuinely listens and doesn't try to impose. There's lots of my male-identifying friends who call themselves allies but still mansplain things to me. So, don't do that. Then there are true allies who genuinely empathize and, I guess, volunteer their unawareness. So I consider myself an ally in certain spaces like the queer community where I don't belong to that community, but I'm an ally, and I've talked a lot with Stephanie about how to genuinely be in that role because I'm still learning. And the biggest thing that came out of that conversation, and I would say it's true about male allies as well, is just admit you don't know. Just admit I cannot walk in your shoes, so please explain it to me.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to explain it to me, that's okay too. And to Stephanie's point about I don't want to explain to you what menopause feels like and why I'm turning blood red in the middle of a talk. Just continue. Or, maybe just bring me a glass of water, but don't make a big deal out of it. Don't snicker in the back room. I tend to call it out now when I'm having a hot flash and I may start stripping layers. Just roll with it. So I think in being an ally, I think we all need to understand what our role is in the particular community we want to be an ally in and recognize that we just don't know.
Yeah, and maybe not asking a woman in the middle of a hot flash about menopause. Step one.
It's what's wrong? Are you let's not bring attention to it, okay?
Surely AI can be of help in that moment somewhere else in a separate realm away from the person.
Indoor voice in
as
your mind.
you learn.
Yeah.
There's 1 minute left. Plug it one more time for the date and everything else, and then final thoughts.
Absolutely. Fierce is coming up on November the 6th. Thank you to our sponsors. Synovus Presents. Thank you so much, Synovus. I appreciate that. We're really looking forward to that day. We're really looking forward to having an opportunity to connect with people. Please get your tickets. There's a few left, and we'd appreciate to see you there.
Tickets are on Eventbrite. You can link that through our LinkedIn, either mine or Stephanie's personal LinkedIn pages. We also have a Fierce Facebook page, and you can find the links for that there, as well as any updates as we continue to grow closer to the event.
And after this event, what happens?
I think the Facebook and LinkedIn will be where we start to build a community and start to build the discussions. And we are going to do a follow-up after the event, a questionnaire to everybody who attends and participates. And then that way we can find out what the next conversation needs to be. And the hope is to have smaller spaces, like say 20 to 30 people, where we can really have some meaningful action-generating conversations.
Build.
Build.
Thanks for this, folks. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. That is it for today's show. The Signal at cbc.ca if you want to get at us about something. The Signal line, if you want to leave a message, a voice message, 709-576-5260. Coming up tomorrow, ADHD after the diagnosis, right? You get diagnosed. What happens then? Well, we've got a bunch of guests coming in to talk all about it. Don't miss the show. Until then, thanks for listening, folks. Cheers.